Welcome back to my channel for a Hasselblad lens review, and the lens I will review in this video is the brand new 35-100E XCD lens. It's a zoom lens 35mm to 100mm, and it was quite a journey for me to get this lens. If you have not watched my video about my journey, I'll post a link down below in the info box. All right. I was tempted to say this is a lens review you guys waited for, but actually I might have waited even more for this lens review than you, because I was so desperately trying to get this new zoom lens. The game plan for this video is simple. I will provide you with my first impressions in terms of shooting experience when I was shooting this camera lens combo in Bern, the capital city of Switzerland, where I actually picked up this camera lens combo. And by the way, as a side remark, it's important to always talk in the Hasselblad context from now on about a camera lens combo, because this lens here supports autofocus continuous, but the wide angle zoom lens 20 to 35E so far does not support AFC, which means autofocus continuous. So it's always the camera lens combination which we should talk about when we talk about autofocus continuous. Second, I want to give you all the specifications of the lens. You guys know the format of my lens reviews is typically a bit longer because I really want to share all the data points from the specifications. And then third, I want to go into sample images, which, as said, I shot in Bern. These will be cityscapes basically, and not so much people. But in a subsequent video in the next couple of weeks, I'll also have one of my photo models available, and then I can shoot this lens in autofocus continuous with face and eye detection, and will test out if the person moves, how sticky is the focus sitting on the face and the eye, and how many images from all my shots will be sharp and in focus if the person is moving. And that is, of course, important to find out now, since we now have in this camera lens combo, again, remember it's a combo, autofocus continuous implemented. I really want to know how reliable it is and how well I can shoot with it in people and fashion photography. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, support my work. I'm super grateful for your support. I have such a nice community on this channel, and the community is not because of me, but because of you. Many thanks for that. All right, so what do we have? Let's have a look inside here. So we have here, maybe we get this lens hood off for a moment, then we can see better inside. So here it says this is actually not a constant aperture, but it's an aperture from f2.8 to f4.0. And it will change if we zoom from 35mm to 100mm. We have a filter thread here that's engraved here, 86mm. And I purchased this filter here on the day when I picked up my camera lens combination here. It has a bit of a metal finish, but it doesn't matter because it looks posh. I like it. And by the way, it also vanishes below the lens hood when I mount it, and you only see it if you look from the front side into the lens. And that's basically all we see. If we look inside the lens, then here on the lens itself, we have three different control elements. First of all, we have here a zoom ring, 35mm, 45, 60, 75, and 100. The zoom ring responds in a very nice way. I think I mentioned in my first video about this camera lens combination, if the Hasselblad X2D Mark II would have video capabilities, this would be an ideal zoom lens for filming, because there is absolutely no noise, no scratching, nothing at all. It is buttery smooth to turn that ring and to rotate it, but it has sufficient resistance so you do not accidentally dial in a focus length you were not aiming for. Really, really nice. The same applies in terms of build quality here to the focus ring. The focus ring is absolutely noise-free, buttery smooth, enough resistance. Will be a pleasure to manually focus with that ring. And then we have a function ring which can be customized in the menu. It also has clicks. Not very loud, but you feel it. There is haptic resistance if you turn it, and you feel the clicks when your fingers are operating that function ring. And you see here, by the way, on the top display already, this is currently set to aperture. Look here at the 35mm setting to f2.8, widest open. If I turn it, it starts to update the aperture and shows that the aperture stopped down. Now, for instance, to an f20. And then I open this up wide to f2.8. Very nice. But as I said, this ring can be customized in the menu. And if you have not yet seen my fully fledged tutorial on how to customize all the mechanical control elements, the button, the control wheels, the control wheel on the lens, then I post a link for you down below in the info box, so you can look this up, of course. The build quality and the way you feel the lens in your hand is just amazing. And that is a statement I make almost every time when I talk about Hasselblad equipment. It's really good. It feels good. It feels solid. It's a metal finish. Also, the lens hood is very valuable. This is absolutely high-end gear you have here. And there's also a rubber sealing. I'll show you quickly. Here you go, and you see it here, you feel it with your finger. Hopefully you can see it in the filming camera here. There is a rubber sealing. So if there is splash water or rain going down to your camera lens combination, at least where this one here connects to the camera body, to the lens mount, not much will happen because it's sealed by a rubber sealing. Now, one more point I want to make here, which is very important, and I really want to show it to you. If you have the lens here and you not yet rotated it so that it snaps in. Watch this. I need a lot of force. And then it snaps in. Listen to the sound. Wow. And there is a lot of talk and, debate and sometimes bashing on XCD lenses, which have a little bit of play on the lens mount here of the camera. This here has zero play. Look at that. I can apply as much force as I want. There is absolutely no play. This is almost like glued into the lens mount onto the camera body. Absolutely fantastic. This lens sits solid like a rock in contrast to other lenses in the XCD lineup. I never mind. I don't care that much if there is a little bit of play. I'm not that much a perfectionist, but some people really find this disturbing. And for this lens, guys, I guarantee you, if the build quality is consistent, if you have this lens for your X2D Mark II, you will have zero play. This is absolutely perfect in terms of build quality and the way this connects with the lens mount of the camera body. When I unboxed the lens, actually in the trunk of my car, again, I mentioned that journey quote unquote video when I picked up this camera lens combination in Bern. My first statement when I took the lens out of the box was, it's larger than I expected. And it actually is a larger lens in the Hasselblad XCD lineup, but you get used to it very quickly. And in terms of weight, it's 894 grams. So that's acceptable for a medium format zoom lens, which offers focal lengths between 35 up to 100 millimeter. And look how long this becomes if it comes out in terms of the lens tube here. So 894 gram. I think it feels very balanced in hand on the Hasselblad X2D Mark II. There is no overweight on one or the other side. And I shoot this in this way here. And I think it's a really nice shooting experience. When I took this camera lens combo out in Bern for shooting the city, it's comfortable. The grip is very nice on the camera, and the lens, when you shoot it, you forget that it's 894 gram and that it is one of the more bulky lenses in the XCD lineup. So really well done from Hasselblad. I like a lot what they delivered here. What else do we have in terms of specifications? So we have 35 to 100 millimeter, which is engraved here on the lens body. But in the specifications, Hasselblad actually says it's 36 to 97 millimeter. So not exactly 35, not exactly 100. It is 36 to 97 millimeter. And the full frame equivalent focal length, if you would want to have the same field of view, instead of on a 44 times 33 millimeter sensor, you would want to look at this on a 36 times 24 millimeter sensor. The full frame equivalent focal length here is 35, or the 36, if you want to have it in this way, corresponds to 28 millimeter. So this will give you in the widest setting here in terms of field of view, kind of the field of view of a Leica Q3 28. And then in the tailor setting, the 100 millimeter with a crop factor of 0.79, which are actually 97 times 0.79, if you follow the specifications, boil down to 76 millimeter. So the field of view on a full frame sensor Full frame equivalent would be 28mm. That's the Leica Q3 28 setting. And then here at 100mm, it would be 76mm. If you want to not be pedantic, let's call it a 75mm lens, which is a beautiful focal length for portraits and people photography. So that's what we have here. What else do we have? We have a filter thread of 86mm. I mentioned this when we looked inside the lens. So filters for this lens will not be cheap, but they will also not be overly expensive. And you have a minimum focusing distance in the 35mm focal length of 0.4 meter. And if you go to 100mm on the lens, you have a minimum focusing distance, and you always measure this from the sensor plane, which is here. Look, here's an engraving. This is the sensor plane marker. From this marker to the subject, you have in the tele with 100mm dialed in on the zoom ring an 0.5 meter minimum focusing distance. And in terms of maximum magnification, you also have different numbers for the wide angle setting and the tele setting. In the wide angle setting, you have 1 divided by 8, and in the tele setting, you have 1 divided by 4, which is actually quite okay if you want to do close-ups and macros. And if you remember, I showed you on my channel the Hasselblad extension tubes, 9mm. You can combine 2 of them to 18mm. You will substantially reduce your minimum focusing distance, and your magnification will see a really significant boost up. So with these extension tubes, I think this lens is perfectly suitable for macro shootings. It will not be a real macro lens if you call real only a 1-to-1 magnification, but it will be kind of a macro experience you have, and you will be in a position to set up smaller items nicely in scene with a reasonable magnification. I think in terms of specifications, that's almost it. If we look at the optical design of the lens, we talk about 16 elements in 13 groups, 3 aspherical elements, 5 extra low dispersion elements. And in short, this means it's a very complex optical construction and nothing but the best you can expect from that lens. As said before, I will deliver a second video on that camera lens combination where I look in detail into autofocus, continuous and tracking. Here, let's just do a quick test. Let's first of all look, I think I played so much on that camera. Let's see what I all dialed here. Let's go to f2.8 in the 35mm setting. Aperture priority is fine. And then autofocus single. And let's basically change the representation here to this one. Let's center the focus field. Let's focus at Jennifer. Immediately response, very nice. Let's focus on the background. Same here. Other side, background, same here, back to Jennifer, immediate response. This is really good. Let's see, we have 0.5 meter, as I just mentioned, in the 100mm setting. So we should actually have enough distance to Jennifer, and it immediately reacts. Let's test this now with autofocus continuous and face detection. So autofocus continuous, then let's go to white, for instance. Let's go to human detection, and let's go back. And now let's see if it catches Jennifer's face. And here it is. And it also detects the eye. Look at that. It will also be sticky. You see here, 3-dimensional tracking, no problem. But as I said, in a second video, I will try this out with real human beings. Although I don't want to in any way hurt Jennifer's feelings here. But she's not a real human being. I sometimes forget. Look at that. Very nice. Very, very nice. So autofocus continuous. In my experience so far, and when I was shooting this lens, this is by far the lens with the most snappy and fastest autofocus I've ever shot on a Hasselblad X or V camera. Absolutely brilliant. Hasselblad must have implemented in this lens, because it was announced simultaneously to the new X2D Mark II with autofocus continuous. They must have embedded here some additional magic, which makes this lens much faster in terms of focusing than any other lens I've ever shot on X or V system cameras. What I want to do now is I want to show you sample images from my recent shooting in Bern when I picked up this camera lens combination, and will of course comment on these images. You know, there's always a debate going on. Should you as a pro photographer really go for zoom lenses and not just always use prime lenses? And if you need a different focal length, you just swap the lens. And that's a really relevant and also fully justified discussion in my opinion. Having said that, the sensors in all the modern cameras you see on my channel are so good. The optical properties of almost all lenses are so good that, I think if you want a compact package, if you want to call this compact, but let's say you want to use the 35 to 100 millimeter as an always on lens, you will not go significantly worse than if you have a bunch of prime lenses in your backpack. Be assured that this is not necessary to carry a lot of prime lenses. You will be absolutely fine for most shooting situations with a zoom lens in the XCD lineup. And of course, you have a very, very nice combination now. Two lenses, the 20 to 35E and then the 35 to 100, lets you cover from full frame equivalent 16 millimeter up to 75 millimeter. And that is for most shooting situations, if you're not in sports and action photography, absolutely sufficient. And if you look into the sample images in a moment, you will see it will be very hard to compete with a prime lens against the image quality you get out of this already. Prime lenses and the statement, which was true back then, some years back, that you always should use prime lenses and not zoom lenses, is kind of still a relevant statement, but it is not so relevant in the context of these super high-end cameras. And even if in the corners or at the boundaries of the frame, you would see a little less sharpness and crispiness than what you see in the center of the frame, you can typically easily correct this in post. So what can I say? This might be the only lens you need. If you are a landscape photographer or in architecture, you might want to supplement it with the 20 to 35E. If you need more tele area, you can supplement this by the 135 millimeter lens and use the converter. And then you have a huge span of focal lengths you can cover with just a couple of lenses. Quite nice. Let's go into sample images. Let's look into them and then let me conclude the video. I want to start with this image because you will see some images where the sky is completely black clouded and where the weather actually didn't look as well as I would hope for. And then you see the other part of images looking into the opposite direction where the sky was almost blue with some white clouds. And that is a good frame also to start for certain points I want to make on that lens. First of all, it's really an amazing lens, and this will be my go-to lens from now on for the Hasselblad X2D Mark II. I don't think I will shoot as many primes as I used to shoot before, because this lens covers so much in terms of focal length spectrum and is so good that it is almost like you have a bunch of prime lenses mounted to the camera. If we crop in here by 100%, you see how good this lens is. Look at that. This is absolutely amazing in terms of image quality, what you get out. Here we are at the boundaries of the lens. Let's go to the corners. Look here. This is the corner. Absolutely nothing I was able to detect that this lens would be weaker in the corners than it is in the center of the lens. Let's go here to this boundary here. Looks also very good. And I think in general, the contrast, micro contrast, the sharpness, the level of detail we see here, the colors, the way this is rendered, it looks absolutely fantastic. And that's why I think this is a good first frame to start with in this little presentation I want to provide to you. Next, I want to show a few frames with different focal length to give you some impressions here. So this is from one of the main bridges in Bern, and the river you see in the lower left-hand part of the frame is River Aare. And here, this one here, is the Swiss Parliament. So this is in German called the Bundeshaus, where the Swiss Parliament is meeting for making decisions. And this is a very famous hotel. It's called the Hotel Bellevue. It's a 5-star place. If you have money and ever want to spend the night in Bern, then this is the place to go to, definitely. And first of all, I do not have yet lens profiles for this lens in Lightroom. So I personally noticed a little bit of distortion. I think this can be corrected as soon as the lens profiles are available in Lightroom, which will happen momentarily because the lens is now in the market for a couple of weeks. But I want to show you the image with different focal lengths, and this is at 35mm, shot at 1/100 seconds at f8.0, typical for cityscapes, landscapes, ISO 50, so the best, clearest signal I can have from the sensor, and it looks really good. If we look down here, look at those people here walking around, someone on a motorbike here. Look at the Bundeshaus, the parliament. Absolutely breathtaking what you get in terms of image quality. This, by the way, hopefully not an indication and a prophecy. The black clouds were over the parliament, not over the opposite direction of the city. And you see this here. And here we have this hotel with a restaurant at the terrace here, which is also very nicely rendered. Again, if I go here to the boundaries, this looks good. No issue with that. Here at the trees, I think it looks good. Let's look here. Looks good. And this is at 35mm. Now the next one is at 45mm, and these are the markers I have along the lens. And we have here at 60mm and here at 75. And you see how you get consecutively closer to the parliament and to this hotel here. And this is the widest perspective, the widest field of view you can have with that lens is really wide enough. You see I capture here everything. This is actually a better perspective, I think, at 45mm, because it still gives you the context that you are at River Aare here. Again, look at these people walking here. And but you have basically the full scene with the parliament and the hotel here. And have in this way, I think, a very nice image composition. Then we have here at 60mm, getting even closer. Look at that, very, very cool. Here, Hotel Bellevue, Terrassenrestaurant means restaurant on a terrace. And then we have the 75mm perspective, which I personally think also looks good. Here I did correct a little bit the perspective, 4 straight lines here. And as I said, distortion correction and all of that automatically with a lens profile. We don't have it at this point in time, but it will come for sure very soon. Even here you see details, tiny little people standing here on the terrace and looking over River Aare. Here, look at that. I think this is just really, really good image quality. I've not seen better image quality on a Hasselblad camera than I see here on this camera lens combination. But there's more to come. I give you more pictures. Actually, in the landscape orientation, I only went up to 75mm, but here is a portrait orientation image shot at 100mm and focusing here on the parliament, the Bundeshaus again, and it looks really, really good. I'm really impressed if I go through these images, what I find in terms of image quality. And I think with that, I covered basically all of the focal lengths which are available on this lens. Of course, you can always interpolate in between and get basically on a continuous metrical scale every focal length that is possible between 35 to 100mm. Here the next image, this is the opposite direction on the same bridge, the bridge where I was standing to shoot this Hotel Bellevue and the Bundeshaus, the parliament. If you turn by 180 degrees, you look in the other direction. And there was definitely the better weather on this day. And here I can now also show you the corners of the lens, at least in the bottom part of the frame. And this looks really good. Look at these houses here. Needs to update and load in Lightroom. Now we are here. Now it's fully loaded. Look at the church tower here. Very, very nice. Look down here on these houses, basically sitting in River Aare here. And the details, the cars, the people, the colors, you know, the contrast here on the conquer, what have you. And look at these people here. And if you go here to the boundaries, really into the corners of the lens, this looks really good. I have absolutely no issue with that. And I think this lens is sharp corner to corner in the whole frame and carries over the natural scene in front of your naked eyes in a very nice way to the sensor. And then, of course, into the storage, so you can look at it later in Lightroom. Looks really good, that frame. Here the Bundeshaus, where the parliament is meeting in all its beauty, people in the foreground, and the 35mm focal length was enough to capture the whole building here in the middle. And again, let's look here. Curia Confederationes Helveticae. How nice is that? We love Switzerland. Did I ever mention? I guess I did. Look at the people here. Looks really good. And here we have the next one here, I think, is the Swiss National Bank. Let's have a look here. Schweizerische Nationalbank. Sehr gut. I think I like this a lot. Look at those people here. You capture the scene. A mom sitting with her child. People walking across. This camera lens combination, I can tell you guys, it looks a little bit big and bulky for street photography, but the footage you can create if you use it for street photography is actually amazing. I really love it. Look at the water fountains here. Very nice, but looks good. It looks really good. And also here we can go to the boundaries of the lens. Look at that. Into the corners. It's sharp, it's clear, it's clean. It is not in any way giving me any impression that this lens is, in terms of quality, only focusing on the center of the lens and not taking care of the boundaries and of the corners. Let's go this time to the upper side here. Look at that. Looks really good. I think this is the last frame I'm going to show you. I like it a lot. The typical city scene in Bern. And if we go here, start from the right-hand side, look at that. Look what you see in this image. And you can go wherever you want. You can scroll around in these images. There is goodness and beauty everywhere. There's really nothing to complain. Look at that. Looks really, really good. Let's go to the other side. Nothing to complain, right? I mean, we are all a little bit obsessed by looking into the corners of lenses, but this one here looks really good. I don't think there's anything to complain. Let's go to the center of the lens, and you detect so much in these images here. Very, very nice. Look at the colors. Everything that's coming across here looks like you would stand in front of that scene. If you print this 2 to 3 meter horizontal width, this is an image where you will, whenever you stand in front of it, detect a lot of things you have overlooked when you looked at it last time. It is really very nice. I like it a lot. All right, let me conclude sample images, conclude the video. You see, I'm in love. I'm totally in love with that camera lens combination. As I said before, it will very likely become my almost always on lens, because in terms of focal length, it covers almost everything I need. You know, the 35mm corresponds in a full frame equivalent setup to 28mm. This is the perspective of my beloved Leica Q3 28. And the 75mm is perfect for portraits, people, fashion, what have you, reportage. And with the extension tubes, I think you guys want me to try this out anyway on a 20 to 35E and also on the 35 to 100E. The two 9mm extension tubes from Hasselblad will basically turn these lenses into halfway macro lenses. All right, that's all I wanted to say to this camera lens combo. For the very last time, let's talk from now on, if autofocus continuous matters for us, only about combos, because not only the camera needs to support it in the Hasselblad world, also the lens, and some of them have not yet firmware which supports autofocus continuous. And I think I shared everything with you I wanted to say. I hope you liked the images, you liked the presentation. If you liked it, please don't forget to drop me your thumbs up. Stay tuned on my channel, there's always more to come. Thanks for watching, stay safe and healthy, and of course, peace out.